Jones is the president of the Ruffed Grouse Society. He'll be sharing more with us about timber harvesting and how that impacts wildlife. So Ben, where in the woods are we?
We are at our homestead, our family's homestead here in the south central part of Pennsylvania, Ridge and Valley. We're in Perry County, and we're on a foothill ridge to Tuscarora Ridge just up to our north. And this is our family homestead that we're managing for wildlife habitat.
So managing wildlife habitat, can you kind of explain what's going on here?
Yeah, and overall for wildlife habitat too, one of the things that's really important is that we have diverse age classes of forest. If you drive out Interstate 80 or out the turnpike as you do traveling around, you'll notice that on both sides it's really a single height, single age forest across a lot of that landscape. And that's a result of what happened, give or take a few years of 1900. As we know, most of the state was cut at that time, overexploited, and that gave birth to the forest conservation movement and forest conservation as a profession. But what we have today across these landscapes is a lot of unnaturally single age, 100 to 125-year-old forest. And so what we can do, and this is the importance of forest management, is we can create young forests by doing timber harvest, sustainable timber harvest. That creates younger stages of forests, intermixed with middle-aged forests, intermixed with that really important older forest too. But the big picture is we need a mix.
And so why do we need this mix of trees? Why is it bad to just have all one type of tree, one height, things like that?
It's all about structural diversity. And if we take the ruffed grouse, for example, which is our state bird, and I work with the Ruffed Grouse Society. We're a national organization actually that focuses on forest wildlife habitat management. But ruffed grouse, for example, at different parts of the year utilize those young forests. For example, when they're raising their broods, like this time of year, they're going to use the edges of that younger, actively growing forest. During the fall, they're also going to depend on things like acorns that are produced at the edge of that young forest in the older forest. So a lot of wildlife, and you can go through the same story for a lot of different species, where at different parts of the year or different parts of their life cycle, they're using different age classes and different structures in the forest. So again, focusing back in that diversity is really important.
Makes sense. So what do you have going on here that you can show us that is helping that diversity?
This place is fairly typical of small woodland owners in Pennsylvania. We had just under 50 acres here, and it was mostly all a single age class of forest. And so just this past winter into the spring, we did a timber harvest here, and our intent was to harvest some trees and create some young forest conditions mixed in with the older forests that we also maintained some of here. And what's really key to us, to all of us as forest landowners who want to do this kind of management, is to have good forest product markets where that wood can go so that it can facilitate a harvest. And the interesting thing about forest management for wildlife is that when we're doing timber harvests, the product we're producing actually pays for the work. So we got this harvest done. It created these young forest conditions, which we'll go out into it and look at. But that work paid for itself because in the process we were selling wood products off the property. So it's a win-win. This first spot we'll go look at, this was interesting, was a stand of older aspen that we had. And aspen will grow very quickly after it's cut back from root sprouts. Every tree has a way, once it's cut or once it's disturbed, to regenerate itself. And aspen has a really interesting approach where they root sprout from, they send up suckers from the roots. So that's what we'll go look at here. Once we cut those older trees, got sunlight onto the ground, then those root sprouts now are just taken off, and that'll create that young forest habitat we're looking for.
So are these the aspen root suckers that you were talking about?
Yeah, so this was an area that was just cut this winter, and you can see that it's already really starting to green up. You can see some of the residual wood still on the ground here, but it's starting to green up quickly, and here's some of those aspens that are coming up from root suckers. So this is our next forest already taken off within just a couple weeks of this harvest being done.
Yeah, that's incredible. So why is there so much excess dead wood laying on the ground around here.
Yeah, so the operator that we used here, the products he was selling, and this actually went to a shave mill that creates bedding for animals. So if you get those bales of bedding that you see at the hardware store, that's where this wood went to.
Okay.
And they can utilize a piece down to about 4 inches at the top. So what you're seeing here is that what's left from those residual tops. And we've actually already started cutting some of this up because firewood is another part of our operation here on the property. So we're utilizing a lot of this for firewood too. But we don't want to use all of it, and that dead wood on the ground is going to provide for nutrient cycling. It's also going to keep the deer off of some of those new seedlings that are coming up because it's a bit of a living fence kind of. You can see they don't want to stick their head down in there. So we want some of that residual wood on the ground too. That's a good thing.
So this isn't just a mess that they left behind. This is actually purposeful and it's protecting the trees. You're going to be able to use some of it, and all around it's going to help the forest grow and become a new young forest.
That's it. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and I can appreciate where if someone goes out and you see this, that it's not tidy, and you might say, oh, that's kind of a mess. But when you realize that what's happening here, we've got sunlight that's now hitting the forest floor, and if you look back into there, it's dark on that forest floor. Now with this sunlight coming through, we're going to get a flush of blackberry, a flush of new growth. These young aspens are coming up. So to me, as a wildlife biologist and a forester, to go look at something like this, a recent harvest, I get all excited and think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I have to step back and explain to people why it may look messy right now, but why good things are happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you expect that you'll have lots of wildlife coming to visit? Have you seen any yet? Or?
The deer visited this one already. I can see where they, they nod on the top of that aspen. If you listen just up here, there's an indigo bunting. And an indigo bunting is a neotropical migrant, so they travel down to South America for the winter. That's a bird that depends on openings like this within the forest in the edges. That's it singing right there. So yeah, we've got wildlife using it, and it's only been a few weeks.
Yeah, great. So you talked about how you sent some of the timber to a shave mill. What else are you doing with the wood on your property?
Yeah, so wood here went for a lot of different forest products, and before that I'll just say I've been working in wildlife habitat management for over 20 years, and wood product markets are really important for what we do. And I'll go as far as to say that our ability or inability to do the habitat management we've been talking about today really depends on forest product markets, because to get the wood cut and get it out of the woods, we have to have an end product where that wood is going.
Right.
And so here we diversified that, and there were about 4 different products. The shave mill for animal bedding. We also sent some for paper, which those 2 things are really key because they utilize smaller diameter, lower value wood. But we also had some higher quality saw logs at various levels, from our walnut to various oak and maple that went for saw logs too. So having diverse forest product markets is really necessary to be able to do this kind of forest habitat management.
And were these local places that came for your timber, or here in Pennsylvania?
Everything was local. The paper or the wood for pulp went to a paper mill down in York County. The shave mill's just up the road. The sawmills as well, and just north of here, the last statistic I saw in Mifflin County had, I think, the highest density of sawmills in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So for us to be situated in a place that has access to all those markets enabled me as a smaller property owner to get this work done.
So we're here in Pennsylvania, we're using Pennsylvania hardwood to create products, and they're going to most likely stay here in Pennsylvania and be used by everyone.
Absolutely. And this pile we're sitting on right here is going to stay right here on the farm, because I had them set aside a couple loads that we could cut up here easily for firewood too.
For firewood. So did you have machines coming through here?
Where we're walking right now is exactly where one of the harvesters that cut these trees was traveling. We're in the tracks from that machine. And this is something really important to point out with landowners, or for people that go out to a public land harvest and they first see it, and it is a disturbance for sure. But that machine, that piece of heavy machinery, was on this site right here just a couple weeks ago. And you can see already, right in the tracks, we've got blackberries coming up in here. There's some ash seedlings starting up. Our oak seedlings that are in here are none the worse for wear. So even though we had that big piece of machinery here, this is already healed up and it's growing back the forest we want.
Yeah, you can see there's all this green here. And so if you didn't keep this cleared to make it a trail or something, it would just start filling in again. And how many, just a couple weeks you said?
Yeah, so we're about, call it a month or 5 weeks post-harvest. And you can see already how much it's growing back.
Yeah.
And I'm especially noting that because I will use some of these trails and I'll work to keep them open, and I've already started to do that so I can have some trails through my woods for tapping maple trees and other things in the future. But if I wait too long, as you can see here, that's going to be grown up, and what little trail was created by the machine, I'll have lost. So yeah, this will close in, and I mean, clearly within certainly a couple years, you'd never know a machine came through here.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see an optimistic future for forest conservation?
Yeah, and forest and wildlife conservation, we really have to be optimistic. I mean, to do the work every day, and there's a lot to do. Yeah, it has to come with a sense of optimism. But I mean, it's really our turn as forest conservationists to do this work. There's a lot at stake, and of course I work with the Ruffed Grouse Society, and our namesake is really a bellwether for forest health. And it's our state bird here in Pennsylvania. And when you think about the declines that ruffed grouse have experienced, not just in Pennsylvania, but range wide, it tells us that our forests need our help. And any reports that you look at, forest health is a primary issue. And we know, of course, today that from the perspective of climate mitigations, forests are the #1 mitigating powerhouse of climate change. So we've got to manage our forests. And we've also got to talk about how work like we did here is an important part of the carbon equation. We need new young forests growing back, quickly sequestering carbon that's in the air today. We need our old forests beside them holding on to the carbon that they're storing now. So that diverse portfolio of our forests that's great for wildlife, great for landowners, is also our way to optimize carbon outcomes too. And that's just going to be such an important part of forest policy and the things we're facing going forward. So we really need to talk about all the benefits of the work we did here for wildlife, for landowners, but also for the climate and for our planet as a whole.
Yeah, so can you just talk a little bit more about, so the young trees are helping sequester the carbon, and then the older trees are helping store it. And so by you harvesting the older trees, like what does that mean in terms of the bigger picture for carbon?
Yeah, so in the carbon cycle, there are two really important parts. There's sequestration, in other words, trees pulling carbon from the air, and then there's storage, which is the fiber that's stored in all these trees. So sequestration and storage are both really important parts. And so we need to store the carbon that's held in those larger trees. When we did the harvest here, for all of those older trees that were harvested and went to wood products, that carbon is stored in those wood products. But we've also created this new generation of young trees actively growing that are sequestering today's carbon at a very high rate. So that's how we can optimize both of those benefits of the carbon storage as well as the new trees sequestering carbon. And of course, we didn't harvest all the trees off of this property. There are still lots of trees here holding carbon into the future. So it's the same conversation with everything, that diversity is key. Whether we're talking about ruffed grouse, numerous songbirds, whatever, diversity is going to be the key. And that holds true for carbon as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking time to show us here what you have going on your property and speaking with us, and best of luck to you for your future of your forest.
It's absolutely my pleasure to share this. Thank you.
Thank you.